Every new technology trend has created more billionaires than the last, and we're in the middle of one of the biggest changes in how our world works, driven by AI. But all those past waves, computers, the internet, mobile phones, they've already made their billionaires. But it is still early innings for the AI investing superwave. And some of the top investing billionaires are pouring hundreds of millions of dollars into this space, which is why I'm not trying to hold you hostage. These are the 3 stocks that we'll be looking at today, which have the potential to 2, 3, or in one case even 7x in price over the next few years that billionaires are buying now. So let's get into it with our first stock. So AI will never be less powerful or less widespread than it is today. And companies like Nvidia and Microsoft have already been making huge returns for their investors. But to find the next great under-the-radar AI stock, we need to understand a company's products and not just their numbers. Massive growth happens when a company has the perfect product in a quickly growing market before that market appears, like with Nvidia. Which is why I'll also be applying my 5 years of experience advising Fortune 500 companies on AI to give my opinion of each company's products and not just their stock. So our first billionaire is heavily invested in this first stock. So Jeff Bezos, you might not know, has a very interesting investing history. Obviously, he made his fortune with Amazon, but if you look at his history, Bezos would be a billionaire based solely on his early investments in companies like Airbnb, early Twitter, and OpenAI's latest military partner, Anduril. And his investing track record is actually pretty impressive, with many of these stocks returning massive gains when they went public, or in one case, when they were taken private again. So I wanted to look at what stocks he was holding in the AI space, and one stock really jumps out at me for their AI potential. Uber. Now, Uber might not sound like an AI company if you haven't looked at them in a couple years, but they are hitting all the levels of the AI stack, from their AI platform for scaling AI services to their AI data prep business. Most investors probably know Uber for their crowdsourced delivery and rideshare services, connecting drivers with people who need something driven. And while much of this technology has AI working behind the scenes, Uber is now taking their learnings from this AI to solving much bigger business problems. So there are 3 main ways Uber has been investing in AI, and we'll go in order from the most immediate to the biggest long-term potential for investors. So starting with the first level, which I call improving the driver experience. Uber has been an OG investor in the autonomous driving space. And while we've come a long way from the earliest ideas of self-driving cars, no one's fully cracked the code yet, even with all the advances in machine learning and AI. Today, all the big car companies are investing in this tech. Tesla's probably the most well-known, but Uber has taken a unique approach to competing with the big car makers and even Tesla's plan to launch a fleet of robo-taxis without drivers. This is actually the same plan that Uber has wanted to do for a long time. But rather than building their own self-driving car, Uber's main strategy has been to partner with maybe the only companies that have a chance to take on Tesla in the space, including Google's Waymo. So Uber's strategy combined their customers and rideshare infrastructure with the autonomous driving tech that dedicated companies are focusing on. Now, it's not guaranteed that that's going to work. Uber's stock price recently took a tumble after GM's Cruise, one of their self-driving partners, decided to close their doors, which puts even more pressure on Uber's partnership with Waymo, which is one of the companies that is most likely to compete with Tesla. Waymo is using a LiDAR-based system for driving rather than a vision-based system like Tesla, which many experts in the field think gives them an advantage over Tesla's system. But at the same time, Waymo does not have nearly the level of public exposure that Tesla does, which has some pros and some cons. And side note, whether you like Uber or Tesla's approach to self-driving, this is just so cool that this tech exists. I love that by investing in these stocks, we get to basically keep up with emerging tech and then bet on the winners. I don't know, maybe that's just me, but I'm a tech nerd. But self-driving isn't the only way that Uber is working on the driver experience. They're also working with OpenAI to launch a GPT-powered driving assistant that works inside the car to make deliveries and drivers more efficient. Now, it's still pretty early stages right now. It's only answering EV-related questions right now for some reason, but it's not hard to imagine this becoming more robust over time and even starting to take the load off of drivers on how to optimize how much money they make, from deliveries to rideshare to maybe one day robo-taxiing their car out. So before we get to Uber's next AI investment, it's worth noting that Bezos is not putting all of his chips on Uber. He's also an investor in Rivian, and he bought the robo-taxi startup Zoox in 2020. 2021, possibly to help with Amazon's delivery services. Amazon also previously invested in one of Uber's self-driving partners, Aurora, and Amazon reportedly has plans to launch their own robotaxi service. It's just typical Bezos. His companies are kind of all frenemies with each other. Uber runs on Amazon's cloud. Amazon gives Uber credits with Prime, while the two companies are both competing in self-driving and deliveries. It's a different approach from some of the even more successful billionaire investors that we'll be getting to later on. But I said that Uber is an AI company, not just a partner with them. So let's look at Uber's next big investment in creating their own AI services that can compete with the big AI makers like Google and Microsoft. So when it comes to AI, Uber's main focus isn't creating new AI models like Gemini or OpenAI's GPT. The company instead takes existing AI models and finds ways to fine-tune them or just apply them to the real world, which in a world full of AI chatbots that don't really do anything is a harder problem than you might think. Uber actually has some similarities to Palantir's approach of taking AI and applying it to companies and governments' hardest data problems. So get subscribed to see an update on that company. But there's one area Uber really stands out, and it's how they scale their AI. It's one thing to train an AI once on a data set, but how do you incorporate new data as it comes in? Or how do you go back and remove data if the AI is making bad decisions? Uber wraps all of this into their formerly secret internal AI operations platform that they call Michelangelo. All of their traditional machine learning models are trained and deployed using this platform. So great, they have an AI operations platform, but how does that help the business and investors? Well, it might not sound as flashy as self-driving, but these machine learning models are why Uber can do things like provide estimated wait times for your food orders or predict and prevent fraud. But what most impressed me when reading through their blog is how mature this AI system really is. In a time when most companies are still figuring out what AI can even do, Uber has a roadmap on exactly where they'll use the next AI capabilities. The focus is on assistance to start, then automation, then on making their user experiences, quote, magical. So imagine a website that is literally personalized to you on a specific day based on your location. These are the use cases Uber is planning for with their future AI tech. Now, to get super nerdy for about 10 seconds, Uber's main use of the tech is using open source Hugging Face models wherever possible, or using Meta's Open Llama 2 models, which for investors mainly matters that they're not using proprietary models or their own models. And they're running everything on top of AWS, Amazon Web Services, to give them the scale to operate around the world. So Michelangelo is a really cool use of AI tech, and I kind of thought that was it with Uber, but as I was researching this company more, I realized that everything about Uber's place in the world of AI is going to start changing based on an announcement from November 2024. So this is the third, and I think most important area of Uber's AI investments. The company is now applying their Uber model of hiring gig workers to creating data sets to train AI models. So they're not just focused on using AI or one level deeper on training AI, they're going one level deeper than that and creating the data that the AI itself learns from. Have you ever heard the phrase, AI is only good as the data that it's trained on? Or have you asked a question to ChatGPT only for it to tell you that it doesn't know about more recent data without using Google search? Data and how you get it is the dirty little secret that keeps the AI world running. And Uber recently announced a whole new division that they're calling Scaled Solutions, which focuses on data labeling, testing, and localization for businesses, which basically means they're going to use a combination of existing Gen AI, a few frameworks they've developed internally, and a whole bunch of gig workers reviewing and writing labels for all your company's data so that your personal AI can use all your own data. It kind of reminds me of Amazon's Mechanical Turk service, only laser focused on data and AI. This B2B model, or business selling to another business, is often overlooked by investors, even though it is a 3 times bigger market than selling directly to consumers. And Uber is pushing into this space in other ways as well. Uber Freight is their answer to UPS or Amazon Delivery, and boy, are they expanding quickly. A few years ago, they acquired Transplace, the largest transportation management company on the market, for $2.25 billion. Since then, they've been infusing more and more of their technology backbone into this business-to-business model, and it's working. The company has passed $18 billion in freight under management, and they've now started selling these tools to other companies. So Uber is using the tech that they built for their apps and turning it into products for other businesses. And if that sounds familiar, it is exactly the strategy that Jeff Bezos followed at Amazon when they invented the cloud computing market using the technology that was running Amazon.com. Now, Uber's price has basically been flat for the entire year, and their PE ratio is just over 30, but the company has been consistently growing each quarter. I think once the market catches on that Uber is a lot more than a rideshare company, this stock could see substantial upside over a 2 to 3 year time horizon. But Bezos isn't the only successful billionaire tech investor, so let's move on now to one of the biggest investors in the world whose company has a shockingly good track record with tech investments considering their leader is over 90 years old. And then we'll get into the most overlooked AI stock that I see in the entire market. So Warren Buffett is my personal investing GOAT, but he isn't exactly known as the most techie person. I mean, look, this guy famously used a flip phone until the 2020s, but Buffett's company, Berkshire Hathaway, has one of the best track records at investing in tech trends and spotting already big companies and then riding them to a massive return. So Buffett isn't some oracle sitting alone in an ivory tower. He actually has a team of younger, very talented investors who have made some really interesting trades that we can learn from. So one example, back in 2008, the team at Berkshire invested in BYD, a Chinese electric vehicle and battery manufacturer, and they did pretty well on that investment. Another example, Berkshire invested a bunch in TSMC in 2022, riding the chip manufacturer to more than a 100% return in a couple years. But Berkshire's biggest and most public bet may turn out to have the most hidden value in the AI space. So Warren Buffett has taken some profits on his Apple shares, but Apple currently makes up over 24% of his portfolio. It's still his biggest bet. So when it comes to a company as big as Apple, this is a stock that so many people cover that the only way to make an outsized return is to find something that the market is undervaluing about the company. So let me show you what makes me think that is true for their AI products. The story of how Apple is entering the AI space follows Apple's well-worn product strategy, and it also kind of reflects the story of how Warren Buffett got to where he is today. So Warren Buffett started out investing as a bit of an outsider. The story is he began investing at the age of 11, and by the age of 26, he had launched his own investing partnership. But he eventually decided to stop partnering with others and took everything in-house, launching Berkshire Hathaway. There were a few other steps that I skipped over, but that was the story as I understood it when I first got started investing as a kid, and as a 12-year-old at the time, it was super inspiring. But Apple, this does tie back to their AI strategy. So Apple is famous for their closed ecosystem of products, sometimes called the walled garden, where the idea is that every new app or Apple product you buy makes all of your other products more valuable. And then they try to marry software and hardware wherever possible, keeping everything in-house to give them more control over things like privacy. And Apple has recently introduced Apple Intelligence into this ecosystem. Leave it up to Apple to call AI Apple Intelligence. But these new capabilities work across Apple's ecosystem of apps, making all of their existing services more valuable. But as a Google Pixel user, this isn't that impressive on its own. A lot of these services are very similar to what other AI can give you. Photo editing, text summarization. It's not necessarily that Apple is doing anything brand new here, but Apple has another level to their AI stack that is a differentiator. Privacy. It seems like every day there's a new story about a company misusing our data, or even taking people's info and using it to train products that they can sell. Microsoft caught some flack for this with their launch of a Copilot product that literally screenshots your computer screen to see what you're doing. So when Apple comes along with a privacy-first AI where most services are done directly on your device, and you can still reach out to ChatGPT for more complicated questions, they seem to have hit the nail on the head for how everyday people want to use AI. It's a feature that enhances your existing tools, and the more valuable your existing tools, the more value users will get. But with that product already on the market, the next differentiator for Apple's future stock price, I think, is what they're doing with chips, marrying their software, in this case AI, with their own hardware. Apple's new A18 chips power their latest generation of iPhones, giving them in-house control of the ever-increasing demands of their phones and especially their AI features. AI can be very energy hungry and power inefficient, but with the right chip, it doesn't necessarily have have to be. Apple's machine learning division recently published how Apple Intelligence combines different AI models running on Apple Silicon, with a large model running in the cloud and then a smaller model running on your device. This report from the Center for Emerging Technology at Georgetown called out how AI-specific chips are going to be key for building more and more powerful AI models, because at a certain point, you can't just throw bigger and more energy-hungry chips at a problem. Now, Apple hasn't really proven their AI chips to be that useful yet, so the market isn't really reacting. But we've seen how Apple's marriage of hardware and software has made huge strides for energy efficiency and performance in the past. And so if they can replicate even a fraction of that with AI, this could become a huge economic moat for Apple and a differentiator for them for years. Now, this is still very early days for Apple AI, but having the ability for them to tailor their own hardware to their AI models is going to be the next big frontier for generative AI. But Apple is also a massive company, so any advantage they have could take years to play out. But this next stock has probably the most potential out of the stocks on this list, and it comes from a billionaire who has grown a $35 million portfolio over the past 30 years to now be worth $70 billion. And I've only recently even learned his name. So Israel Englander is a rising star in the investing world, but this guy has a really impressive track record of getting in on rising companies early. His hedge fund Millennium Management invested in Palantir in 2022, exiting his position only after the stock had risen nearly 300% in a year. He also made a huge return in Nvidia, turning that position into another multi-bagger stock for the billionaire. But after lightening his shares in those stocks, Englander has been investing heavily into a different AI company, which just so happens that early Palantir investor Peter Thiel has also been heavily involved with. Now, the third stock is not Palantir, but you can watch these two videos I made covering that stock from a business level and from a technology standpoint, which I made before Palantir's recent price rise. People really liked them, and even Palantir's forward deployed technical architect said so. But for Israel Englander, his biggest AI stock that he is still buying today is Meta. Now, I previously covered Meta in my last video on my top 4 AI stocks. But with the stock up around 25% since then, plus with so many new developments with this company, I think it's worth taking a look at what has changed for investors looking at Meta as an investment for 2025 and beyond. And we'll talk through it using a product demo, an analogy, and one mind-blowing number that will dictate their long-term stock price. So since the best way to understand tech is to see it in action, this is Llama 3.3, Meta's newest version of open source AI models. Open source meaning anyone can download it, run it, modify it, and take it apart as much as they like. Oh, just a second. Oh, got a package. I'm pretty sure I know what this is. It's just really hard to open. Can you tape this whole thing? There we go. All right. And look at that. YouTube Silver Play button arrived. Okay, so there was no one at the door. This actually showed up last night. But I wanted to throw it into this video because this is only here because of you guys. Like, it's kind of crazy. We're at 100,000 subscribers right now. And I started this channel like 4.5 years ago, and I've been doing YouTube for 6 years at this point. So this is just really, really cool to see. So thank you all so much for subscribing. And yeah, let's get back to Meta. So let's start with the product demo. As someone who works as a solution architect, I get to test some of the most cutting-edge AI tools. And Meta's free AI model, Llama 3, is out-competing private models from OpenAI and Google. But they didn't approve my request to run it on my computer in time, so I'm going to use Perplexity AI's site to run Meta's AI instead. They have a very generous free playground, so I'm gonna make do with that. So Meta has been super busy launching new models, including their latest one as of making this video, Llama 3.3, which is more advanced than OpenAI's GPT-4o model, while actually being more powerful and smaller than Meta's previous Llama models. But what's crazier is Llama is entirely free and can run on your personal computer or in a cloud environment like AWS. Meta isn't trying to sell Llama as a platform to developers because they know the real value lies in controlling the ecosystem and using it to deliver useful software on top. So next, an analogy. Think of the AI market today like the smartphone market of the 2010s. Back then, you had hardware makers like Qualcomm and Intel raking in the profits from making faster and smaller chips. Then came the platform wars, Google with Android, Apple with iOS. They took over, making real money by controlling the ecosystem. But now, today, the true wealth lies with the software companies that leverage these platforms, whether it's the app developers or the software as a service giants. And AI is following the same playbook. Hardware giants like Nvidia are dominating today. AI model creators like Meta are building the future platforms, and the company that masters software on top of these platforms will be the real long-term winners. Meta knows this, and that's why they're giving away the platform for free and focusing on monetizing what is built on top of it. Just like Google uses Android to drive their ad business. And with the future of content increasingly focusing on AI, the fact that Meta owns not one, but 3 of the biggest communication platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp, puts them in an extremely strong position to monetize content using AI built into these platforms. But now to the big number, and then we'll get to how Meta can use all of this to win the AI race. So the number that blew my mind looking into this stock was 350 million downloads. That's how many times Meta's AI models, including Llama, have been downloaded, which makes it the most downloaded AI platform in the world, because you can't download ChatGPT. But why does that matter? Well, we're shifting from massive cloud-based AI models to smaller, more efficient ones that can run on your computer or your phone. And Meta's open source approach is positioning them as the go-to for developers and businesses alike. So there's a couple ways that Meta can turn this into revenue, which can ultimately boost the stock price. First off, you have advertising. Meta is already integrating AI to improve recommendations on Facebook and Instagram and to boost engagement and ad revenue. Secondly, you have business tools. Their AI Studio lets companies build custom chatbots, creating new revenue streams and keeping businesses on Meta's platform. And it's certainly attracting at least some AI companies to use it. And then third, you have enticing creators. By giving creators tools powered by AI, Meta is positioning them as a stronger competitor to platforms like TikTok or YouTube. They already own Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp, and so as they incorporate easy-to-use AI tools, that could position them to attract more content to their platform and thus monetize it better. There's a really interesting theory that in 20 years, social media algorithms will be less of a stream of videos and more like each of our own AI play places, where we create our own content as we experience it. So instead of watching a YouTube channel, you would subscribe to a creator who provides a differently tuned AI algorithm that kind of gives a specific vibe for their channel, and then you create the content yourself. So by not taking the short-term money and instead playing the long game with free open source tools like Llama, Meta is attracting developers, businesses, and creators, and that will slowly build critical mass over time for the company to eventually leapfrog to potentially become the leader in the AI space. Now, I'm going to try to respond to every comment for at least the first few days that this video is up if you want to talk about these or any other AI stocks, and if you want, this video has 4 more top AI stocks. Ooh, you can tell Meta's AI is getting good because Mark Zuckerberg is looking more and more human.